Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Berlin Noir. And for today, we're going to be returning back to Alexanderplatz. It's been a while since we've been over this way. I believe episode 14 is when we built Alexanderplatz. So basically halfway, the midpoint of the series is when we built it. But we're returning over this way for one purpose, and that is this building here. The old police headquarters, which is located right next to Alexanderplatz. And this building is just, at least back then, it was a very symbolic, a very large, significant building in Berlin. At the time it was built in 1890, it was actually the largest building in Berlin. So, and I must say, I try and scale it accurately in this build, but it looks, to be honest, it looks pretty enormous. The final product, once I build it all up. But so as I said, this was the police headquarters for the Berlin police. And the building was built in 1890 and then was destroyed in 1945, of course, due to World War II. The building was never rebuilt for whatever reason. If I had to guess, probably, something to do with the Soviets. In East Berlin, I'm sure they didn't want any sort of reminder or remnant of any sort of power source or, in the history of Berlin or Germany. And, this building was definitely pretty symbolic back then, of course, due to its massive size. But it went by the name or nickname, I guess, the Red Castle, which if you watch or are a fan of the show Babylon Berlin, which is one of the biggest inspirations for the series, and pretty much the number one reason why I actually started this series to begin with. But yeah, if you know or are familiar with that show, then this is where the show takes place. Of course, since the building doesn't exist today, they film a lot of it at the Rotes Rathaus, the Red City Hall, Town Hall, which is located pretty close to this as well, nearby Alexanderplatz. And the building I'm using actually, or the asset I'm using here, is actually that same asset, the Red Town Hall. And since, an asset for this exact thing didn't exist, I figured this was probably the best way to do it because the buildings are pretty similar. They're both large structures with this just pretty bright red brick facades with similar windows and everything. And also this tower right here, which I am building. I'm using a PO, kind of shrinking down just to get a little wall to remove the clock. To remove the clocks on the clock tower here. Because, considering how close this building is to the town hall, I don't want the buildings looking as so similar. So as I said, the buildings, both of them were pretty familiar, at least the red brick, but this one was significantly larger, which is why I'm tripling up the building here. And so if you go back to the earlier picture that I showed of the aerial view, you'll notice that the building has a slight curvature to it. So the front is flat, but the rear side is kind of curved. It curves inward at the center point and then curves back out. And that's what I'm trying to do right here. And since it's really impossible with PO to curve buildings, maybe really simple assets or props that don't have a ton of little vertices that you can edit might be possible, but something as large as this and hundreds, or however many thousands of vertices this asset has to modify in PO, you can't really do that. And my computer was like dying trying to edit this building. I had to basically, whenever I did an edit with in procedural objects or customize the building. So if I got a large amount of vertices and moved them around at all, I had to like exit out of procedural objects and just reopen it back up, which of course that's really easy to do. But when you're editing a lot of the vertices and just it's pretty repetitive, then that is kind of annoying. But for whatever reason, after I just modified any sort of a large cluster of those vertices, the thing just dragged to a halt just about. It became extremely slow, which is why I actually dragged this entire structure away from where it actually is going to sit eventually. As you can see, just nothing around but grass. And that's just to try and get ever so, few more FPS, improvement here, just because it was pretty rough. But yeah, anyways, so this little thing here, little small dome, I guess, whatever you want to call it, that I believe is part of a church, or actually no, I believe that's part of another city hall asset that I have. But yeah, that's one thing I had to PO. And also earlier when I was building that clock tower, the other little dome on top there, that was actually a circular dome, and using PO I was able to modify it to make it actually square, and you really can't tell that it was a circle. So that fortunately that particular asset, when I just used PO to get rid of the entire building but just leave that little dome there, I was able to convert it to a square surprisingly easily. So that was definitely really nice. But anyway, so what I'm doing here is trying to improve like the roof of this overall structure, because as you can see, obviously clipping together 3 buildings, you're going to have a lot of things kind of poking out looking weird. So I wanted to kind of raise up those 3 little kind of, I guess, sunroofs. I believe I'm guessing that's supposed to be a sunroof of some kind or whatever. But raising that up so they look as though they're supposed to actually be there. Whereas, as you can see, the other 2 that I still haven't adjusted yet, those are just barely poking out, so that looks kind of weird, kind of messed up. But this is one thing I did to try and improve the roof, which I also off camera, just because I did try and make it even better, but because it is definitely pretty tedious, this entire thing, and I've dedicated a 18-minute episode just to this one building, which is, it's a short episode relative to my others, but considering it's one building, it's, kind of long, at least for me. Maybe not for you, but for me, it was definitely a lot of tedious work for this. But yeah, I did go back off camera to try and fix all the roof, lower some of the things that are poking out, just to make it look a tad bit better. But that was still really hard to do, just because, as I already mentioned, this building has like a million vertices. So editing in PO, all those little, those little blue circles popping up makes it really hard to know what's what, and a lot of trial and error, just selecting small clusters and, seeing what that moves, and then, control Zing it, which I'm pretty sure the undo button was not always a feature in procedural objects. Because at least for the time being, I'm relatively new to procedural objects, really, once I started this series, so I've been using procedural objects for less than a year. But I think when it first came out, because it's been out for a while, I guess, but I don't think there was a undo button, so that had to be scary, I bet, for people who use this mod to modify buildings or whatever, and not have an undo button. That had to be rough. But I don't know, I guess I'm just definitely very thankful the mod now has a undo button, because anything like this, and pretty much most of the PO projects that I do and everyone else does that uses a mod, that all those type of things would pretty much be impossible. But anyways, so one thing that when I was building this I didn't realize, but so I'm working here on, I guess this is now the 3rd little tower here. And yeah, I didn't realize until afterwards. I don't know how I didn't realize, but there actually was only one of these towers, and that is that one right there that I just copied, the original one that I built, the very first one there. That's the only actual tower on the 4 corners that actually exists. So the 2 small ones, the 2 small circular, I guess, dome things, that I was building earlier, those did exist, and there was also 2 of those on the opposite side, which I didn't actually put those, and that's purely just because the air, like where I did place those little circular domes, it was on like a little area in the building that kind of sticks out, and because I kind of rotated the buildings in the back, those little areas were kind of squished together. So if I placed those little domes in the exact same area, they would have been like right next to each other. So that probably would have looked weird, so I didn't want to do that. So I just left just only those 2 in the front. But anyways, my point is, since I end up placing 4 of those large clock tower things, or not really clock towers, but towers, whatever they are, like I like how it looks, but I guess it's not, it's not historically accurate. So I guess I'll leave it up to you guys if you want me to get rid of those and just leave the very one, which is close to this, like I said, it's the very first one I built, which is close to Alexanderplatz, or if I should leave all 4, which, stay tuned to the cinematics when you see the entire thing, and, the size of the building as well, so, make your decision then. But, yeah, let me know what you think. But, so what we're doing here is, this is actually like a horse stable area. So I read somewhere that it actually did have something like this, since, a lot of police officers, or I guess depending on your rank, back then would be riding around on horses, patrolling the streets, which, I mean, I don't know about Europe, but I'm sure probably still does exist in places, because I know in the US here, there's still even mounted police officers on horses, which is usually, I don't know if it's like it's not a ceremonial thing, I know that, but it's, at least in where I live in Arizona, it's usually around like festivals or parades. Like, they're not in the parades, but they're just patrolling the areas around it. So I don't really know why they pull the horses out for things like that. But I know in like New York, I see pictures and videos of police on horseback, and that seems somewhat normal. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it still exists, which is interesting. But yeah, I read that there existed a stable in an outdoor area, so that's figured I'd make it. Which, I mean, a unique detail in the center of a building, rather than just, trees or, a fountain or anything like that, which is what I do for a lot of things, just because it's simple. And for the most part, you don't really get to see behind, in the center parts of these buildings. So usually I don't detail it too much, because I just don't think it's worth it that much. But yeah, I figured that was something cool and unique that I'm not going to build anywhere else in the city, so I might as well. But here I'm just getting rid of the really bad, like, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's supposed to be a staircase or a ramp leading up to this door here, but that part of the asset does not look good. Yeah, so I definitely had to, edit that, just throw a nice staircase in front, and definitely looks a lot better. But so I do have some pretty cool news. I created my very own asset. So I know quite a while ago I mentioned I wanted to make a freight car, a box car, freight wagon, whatever you want to call it, that's, themed to this era, unique to Germany, because there's nothing on the Steam Workshop that was quite like that. And I guess I'll throw a picture up on the screen here, just because I'm not doing anything with it in this episode. But yeah, it's simple. It's far from perfect, but it was pretty fun. Like, I finally got around. The hard part was the texturing and doing the UV unwrapping and mapping and all that mess. But the modeling itself is pretty fun. But yeah, I finally managed and got around to actually finishing it and getting the texturing done properly. And it's cool to see it in game. It's not published on the workshop yet. It's only available to my Patreon. My patrons on my Patreon account. So yeah, I guess if you're interested in becoming a patron, that's one of the benefits, a small one, because of course if you do come on as a patron, you get the save game access, you get early access to all the videos, Discord chat, a bunch of other things too. So yeah, if you're interested in that, check out that. There's a link in the video description. But yeah, it was very fun creating that asset. I actually immediately after I started working on something else, not for this series, but actually for a mini series, which don't worry if you're, don't want me to get into a mini series now. I'm not going to. That's still a ways away. I just, kind of want to see if I can create that asset exactly for that mini series. But it's a larger building. It's a church. But if there's any asset creators out there watching this video and you'd be, interested in creating a church for me, let me know. Definitely, because I'd much rather have someone who's good at asset creating or creations, rather than me, because, yeah, even if I do manage to pull it off, it's probably not going to be very good. But yeah, any asset creators who would be interested in something like that, definitely hit me up, please, because that'd be pretty cool to have for a future mini-series of mine. But anyways, we are getting pretty much to the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this, or hopefully it wasn't monotonous or anything like that. For me, building kind of with all that PO, it kind of was, but hopefully it transitioned nicely to a nice video for you guys. But definitely like the video because I want to be able to surpass my Instagram followers. I have about 1,800 on Instagram, so it'd be nice to finally get more subscribers on YouTube than I do have followers on Instagram. So yeah, like the video, that'd be much appreciated. And if you're new, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And yeah, I will see you all in another video.